How would you feel if you lived out of a bag, never unpacking or having a structured amount of time to actually unpack? You don't need dressers or a closet because your entire life is basically shoved into 2 duffel bags. That's what it's like growing up with divorced parents. In this speech, I'll be giving my reasons as to why I believe once you become a teenager, children with divorced parents should have a choice in where they want to live. According to the American Psychological Association, over 40% of marriages end in divorce. And sadly, the struggle of raising children actually makes divorces more common. Most understand the feeling of living out of a bag and not having a real home. Children across America deal with going back and forth from one parent's house to the next. Many have accepted it, but others want a choice. They want a chance to feel normal. They want a chance to feel like the other kids. Judith S. Wallerstein, author of Journal of the American Academy of Children and Adolescent Psychiatry, discussed how children with divorced parents who travel frequently from one house to the other struggle with psychological and social difficulties. My parents divorced when I was 10 years old. I have 2 younger siblings who also struggled with living out of a bag. Thankfully, I've escaped the never-ending cycle of switching from one house to the next. This is not because of the generosity of the court system, but because I am now an adult. For years I fought and argued to get to decide where I want to live, but it never happened. Although some districts allow children to have a choice of where they want to live, most do not. I believe once children reach a certain age, all should have a choice of where they want to live. This is no longer an issue for me personally, but my brother still deals with living from a bag and not getting to act like a normal child. The child's happiness should be most important. Some situations are different than others and must be treated differently. However, the children's opinion should always have priority. This issue has been an ongoing discussion with attorneys and court systems. Through My Florida Law, Alberto Ayo states that under very rare circumstances is the child's opinion taken into account. Age is definitely a factor in this debate, but I believe that when a child is a teenager, they are fully aware of the decisions and the outcome they will have. It is upsetting because it is clear that a child's wishes and happiness are the least of the court system's worries. Understandably, no court wants a minor testifying in front of a judge. This experience is stressful and no place for a child, but there are counselors and private rooms for a judge to speak alone with the child. If the court system truly cared about the wellness of these children, then they would work towards finding a way to hearing these kids' opinions. After struggling with the court system and going to a countless number of counselors, my drive to being in a stable home and escaping the living out of a bag situation slowly diminished. The court system did not want me to lose my relationship with my mom. I was forced over with no transition period or even an interest in how I felt about the situation. I believe there should be a bigger transition period if the child is going to be forced into a situation they are uncomfortable in, rather than essentially throwing them into something without being mentally prepared. I felt alone. I am now seeing these same characteristics in my brother. I was never heard or cared about by the court system or any counselors that I went to. I knew the judge did not want me to lose my relationship with my mother, but I felt that there were other ways to accomplish it. I believe counseling is a very helpful tool in repairing parent-child relationships if done correctly. After going to many different counselors, all showed the same pattern. What I had to say was not as important as my mother. This flaw in the system is what has driven me to become a psychologist. In the book, Divided Families, the author discusses how counseling for the parent and the child can be helpful if done correctly, but overall will not have any serious effect on the relationship. In order to fix a relationship, both sides need to be heard and should be equally important. Although my family has adjusted to this tragic living situation, I always wonder how different and how happy everybody would have been. Many family situations are different and must be dealt with differently, but a rational decision cannot be made without hearing all sides of the story. Jacqueline Scott, author of Research with Children, states that children being seen as incomplete adults and children not being heard is very inappropriate. With divorces and even with outside research, if kids are not heard, then new research cannot develop because we are limiting ourselves to who is being heard. Teenagers with divorced parents having a choice on their living situation is definitely a slow process, but I believe it is something that should be available for all kids of that age. As somebody that dealt with these struggles for over 7 years, I do not want my siblings or any other minors to go through what I went through.